Hello, I'm John. Welcome back to the workshop. Today we're going to take a bunch of my small pieces of 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch stock in varying species and turn them into a series of small boxes, primarily a pencil box. So let's get started on drawing these out. All right, we're over here at the bench, and I've got my tape measure and a couple of just small pens and markers that I have sitting on my bench here. So I'm just going to give them a quick measure. So about 5.5, 6 inches. So let's make this box about 6 inches long. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of our stock here, and I think the one I really like that'll really work well with this leopard wood here is this Peruvian walnut. So what we're going to do with this is we're actually going to router out a little groove on the bottom and the top. And I'm going to use this piece of maple, this piece of 1/4 inch maple, and that'll fit in a groove on the bottom. And then we'll use our piece of leopard wood to fit on the groove on the top, except the one on the top will be able to slide in and out. So what we're going to need to do is get a little groove on each side of this. And for that, I've got a new router bit I want to try out. So I recently picked up this CMT 1/8 of an inch router bit. And that'll work really good because this is about 1/8 of an inch stock. So we're going to get this set up in the router. Okay, so I got everything all routed out. I routed out our main piece, but I also routed out a piece of cherry and a piece of maple. So I made the top one just a little bit bigger, so that way when we've got the leopard wood in here as the top, it slides around more freely. And then the bottom one, much more snug, because we don't want this to move. So it'll be captive, but it'll be floating. And then I cut these other colors here because I thought it might be kind of cool to mix and match and make a couple of these. So the next step here is we're going to take these out to the miter saw and cut some 45s. All right, we're back in from outside and we have everything cut. And it's looking nice and clean. So what we're going to do now is do a test assembly here, because we've got our other two pieces. We've got our top and our bottom. And one thing we'll note in this assembly here is that these are going to need to get trimmed down on the table saw. So that is the next step we're going to do. All right, we're back outside with the table saw set up. We've got our piece marked to what we need to rip off here. We've got our gripper here to help with these thin cuts against the fence here. So let's get this set up and start a cut. All right, we are back in from outside and we've got all the pieces cut, and I did trim a piece off of here so that way when the slide goes in, that it can be pulled right here. But I don't want to leave it like that, so I've got this scrap piece of cherry, and I thought that would be a good kind of accent piece right on there. So we're going to sand this down, and we're going to attach this piece to the top of this box here. We are going to trim this just a hair so the piece can set on top of here. We've got this kind of rough chiseled. We're going to kind of hit it with some of the finer hand chisels, give it a sanding, and then see if it'll fit. So we've got it all hand chiseled out and squared off. And I'd have to say I did pretty decent. I don't do too many hand mortises with hand tools, so this was a good, fun kind of practice opportunity. So next, we're going to get it attached to this, and we're going to get a finger hole drilled. All right. So we've got our piece here. I've got it on this pine piece of scrap, so that way when we drill in the hole with our Forstner bit, it's not going to cause any tear out. I just did a couple of test pieces with some of the Forstner bits I have. A 1-inch, a 22 millimeter, a 20 millimeter, and a 3/4. I think 3/4 is actually going to go really nice on this. So that's what we're going to use for our finger hole. So we've got our Forstner bit all lined up in our drill here. So now we're going to line it up and drill out our finger hole. Okay, we've got everything here ready for assembly and glue. What we're going to do now is get out the sander, give it a very light sanding, and then glue and assemble. All right, we got it all laid out. We did a rough sanding of the inside. So now let's apply some glue and get it clamped up. The box out of the clamps, and it's looking pretty good. So we're going to give it another sanding, and then we'll probably finish it up to 220 grit, and then we're going to finish it with some Danish oil. I'm going to start with some hand sanding. So I've just got a sanding pad here with some 220 on it. So I'm going to give the box a rough hand sand, and then I might use the random orbital sander to really finish up some of the edges. concludes our project. I'd say it turned out really, really well. I like the leopard wood on the top here for the little slide. And the finish on here, the Danish oil, gave it a really nice satin and color to it. So this will be a great piece to have on my desk at work and to store my pencils. If you like this video, click like and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.